You guys, welcome back to the Inner Beauty Code. I am so excited about today's guest. Her name is Gisele from the Cosmic Laundry. She is a astrologer and human design reader, and I can tell you from personal experience with her, she is amazing and has so much information to share with us today. Gisele, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
And is there anything else that you want to tell us about yourself before we deep dive into things?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like people will get a feel for me more as we start chatting. I'm Canadian. People tend to love to hear that. I think people always assume that I'm from the US, but I'm not. And yeah, I used to be a therapist. So that's what I did before. So my approach is very rooted in psychology and just, my studies from my undergrad as well.
That is right. I meant to mention that. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so Gisele, I know that your specialty obviously is, well, you have, many different things we're going to cover today, but how did you get into astrology from being a therapist? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I started my work as a therapist very young. And I think I reached a lot of the goals that I had set for myself probably like 10 years earlier than I anticipated being able to make those things happen. And I realized when I was probably like 24 or 25, and I realized that there was like something missing. I was like, okay, I have all of the things that I thought that I wanted, and now I'm realizing that there's something missing. And so I went on a bit of a healing journey. I started getting really interested in things like astrology and human design, and so I just started studying them for fun. Mostly, actually, I wanted to get a birth chart reading, and the woman that I wanted to get my birth chart read by charged like $800 US, which is like not a big deal. But at that time, I was like, okay. And I think it was like a phone call. It wasn't even like a video call. And so I was like, okay, that's an investment. I was like, let's see if I can teach myself first. And so I bought a bunch of books just teaching astrology, taught myself how to read a birth chart, and then started just reading for my friends for practice. And then word kind of got out. I started doing readings like at my kitchen table, just like for $30. And then it just blew up from there. And then from that, I found that it was so beneficial just working with astrology, working with human design. I also learned them at the same time. So I know a lot of people start with one and then they switch to the other. I learned them in tandem. And then I started incorporating it with some clients because they were interested in it. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Amazing. So basically, then you left your work as an actual therapist in the setting that you were doing it in, and then you kind of incorporated that because I was going to ask you this a little bit later on, but let's go into what you offer, and then
Mm.
I want to touch on your social media presence after that. But you have many different things that you offer, and I know you're working on the magical hot
Hot
girl boot.
girl boot camp.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've had many astrology readings before, and I can attest to the fact that every astrologer, they're not all created equal, and everybody has their own little niche. And I find it really interesting that your readings and your work incorporates not only having the psychological understanding in the background, but also the human design aspect combined with astrology, and then the archetypes of the different goddesses and feminine deities throughout
Mhm.
history. So let's go into kind of how you work and what you're currently offering now.
Yeah, so I am, if anyone knows human design, they'll know what this means, but I'm a manifesting generator. And so I always have a lot of different things on the go and I'm like kind of putting them all together. I'm also just a very creative person. Like if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be like a writer or a poet or something. Like I just love to create. So a lot of the things that we do in our business come from like my inner desire to create something. So there's a lot, but mostly like the main things is I do soul guides, which are my absolute favorite part of our business. It's like a digital PDF. You can actually order ones that are printed as well. And I made them really beautiful, like a coffee table book of all of your placements so that you can just pick it up and go, what is my Mars sign again? What's my human design profile? So you have that on hand for reference. And I think those are the thing that at this point in time, I'm the most proud of in our business. I also do readings. I do ongoing sessions. I call them expansion sessions. So that's where we can start to integrate your astrology and human design, because I think that the real magic of these is figuring out how to apply it in your life. And then I do coaching programs and courses and mentorship. And mentorship is one of my favorites. I love working with people who want to learn astrology and human design and incorporate it in their work. And that mentorship has become very therapist heavy. I have a lot of therapists who hire me to teach them astrology and human design so they can use it in their practice.
It's so interesting. I didn't even know that about you, and I had been thinking about this. Just so you guys know, I had a reading with Gisele, and it was phenomenal. And I was thinking afterwards, I would love to learn from you. So I'm glad you offer that.
Yes,
Because you're so unique in what you do. And yeah, so anyone who's never had an astrology reading before, it would be a really great place that would give a lot of information into how to, and yeah, like you just said, and how to incorporate the different energies like within you into your life and whatever it is you're doing. And I would, yeah, I was really like, oh, I want to learn how to do this too.
and I think it's like the future of astrology is going to be a therapist and coaches using it. Yeah.
I would love that because I love astrology.
You'd be really good, I think, at applying it and working with it with clients. So let me know whenever you're ready. I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So about the Magical Hot Girl Boot Camp, can you just, I want to know, just give people kind of an idea of how they could like use little tidbits of information, because I found you through your social media, which I just really loved. Again, your style and how you talk about astrology and human design and how you talk about the different energies that are going on that are so applicable to things that are happening in life and in the world and stuff like that. So let's maybe kind of how you give us a little sample, I mean, of how you use it.
Yeah. Of how I use the archetypes, you mean?
Yeah, just how you use the archetypes. Basically, if someone was coming to you to get a reading, like what they could expect, or someone who just doesn't know anything about astrology, like how would
Yeah.
they learn more about it to be interested in a reading in a way?
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. So I love working with archetype. Even before I was an astrologer, I was really, really into archetype and just understanding how these different archetypes live within our psyche and how we all kind of understand what they mean. Like very Jungian type work, right? When I'm working with astrology, my belief is that we feel the best, we feel the most whole, we feel the most healthy, happy, radiant, vibrant when we have access to more archetypes. Most people get stuck in one pattern or two patterns, and you can find that in the birth chart. A lot of times people over identify with their sun, for example, or their moon, and then there's certain positives to those archetypes and there's certain negatives to those archetypes. And then your whole life becomes you just playing out the story of that archetype and feeling as though you don't have any power over your own life. And so something that I do with people a lot is to help them to understand how to like live into the high road of the archetypes that are already present in their birth chart. And the ironic thing is, usually in order to live into the high road of a placement, you have to adopt and embody the opposite archetype as well. So you have to become more well-rounded. You actually have to become more well-versed. And so my approach with people is always to look at the birth chart as a map, but not as a like a prescription. Like you can really work with your birth chart to create the life of your dreams, no matter what that life looks like. We don't use the birth chart to tell you who you're going to become because you have so much more power than that. So everyone's readings are different, which is why it can sometimes be challenging to be like, this is exactly what's going to happen, because I do work in a very intuitive way. And I also really focus on what each person needs in each moment. I think there's a lot of things in astrology, especially when you're using astrology and human design. Readings could be 5 hours long, and then you'd leave and you'd be so overwhelmed because it would be so much information and you wouldn't know what to do with it. So Kelly Surtees often says, she's an astrologer, and she often says that our job is to, as astrologers, is to figure out what the person needs to know and to focus on that. Which is why I think it also can be beneficial to get many readings throughout your life, maybe even from different people, because they'll focus on different things at different times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, totally, and totally can say that's been my experience too. Like I said, you gave me a reading way different than all the other readings I've had. I mean, I've been my mom used to take me to holistic conventions as a kid, so I've been to many astrologers, and I can say I really love your style.
Thank you.
And going back to your social media, so that's how I connected with you. And I just really love your page and specifically how you incorporated the archetypes. And like, when you were reading my chart, you told me something about Marilyn Monroe having like specific aspects of to her chart. And I know you were recently studying up on her. As far as the goddess archetype and just how certain placements, when attributing it to a specific person that we can see, a celebrity, obviously, that people can relate to or understand what that energy looked like in human form or looks like in human form. It's
Mhm.
really cool. So I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, or is that something you want to save for?
No, we can expand on that. Yeah, so just in terms of the archetypes of like what the 5 magical hot girl archetypes are. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so these come from, I have something called the moon archetypes that I created years and years ago. I created it during COVID actually. And I created those because when you look up any type of interpretation of moon and generational planet aspects, they're all increasingly negative. So moon Saturn, moon Pluto, moon Uranus, like they basically tell you that your world is going to be on fire all of the time. And I am a very realistic person, but I'm also a very like positive person. And I during COVID really studied those archetypes to figure out like what really is the magic here. And so the magical hot girl archetypes are like the healthy healed version of those moon archetypes in a lot of ways. So we have 5 of them. We have the guardian, the goddess, the enchantress, the star girl, and the fairy. So the guardian is really connected to Saturn energy. Anyone who has a lot of Saturn connections or energy in their chart will probably identify with her. The goddess is very Venusian. She's connected to Venus. Anyone with lots of Venus, Libra, Taurus will connect with her. The enchantress is connected to Pluto. So anyone with lots of Scorpio energy or just, Pluto connections. The fairy is Neptune energy or Pisces energy. So anyone who's got a lot of those placements. And then the star girl is Aquarius energy, Aquarius or Uranus. And what I find is that most women who are really connected to themselves or want to be connected to themselves fall into a couple of these archetypes. Ideally, like what Magical Hot Girl Bootcamp is about learning how to connect with all 5 because when we're overabundant in one, we really mess up our lives, like for lack of a better word. So it's really about teaching you how to embody and connect with all 5 of these archetypes so that you can be happy, so that you can live a very happy life and not be at the mercy of these archetypes kind of running your life and running the show.
I love that. So maybe in another context, it would be like healing the feminine energy within you so it's more balanced and healthy and well rounded, which sounds
Mhm.
amazing. And ladies, if you're wondering what archetype you are, Gisele has a quiz on her
Mhm.
Instagram page that you can click on, right? It's on your Instagram and take her quiz.
Yeah, it's in the link in bio. So it was like a really fun little quiz that I made and it's been so fun just seeing the answers coming in and seeing what most of our community is. So,
Yeah. I got the
yeah.
Enchantress on that.
Oh yeah.
So maybe I need to come to Magical Hot Girl
Hot girl
Boot Camp.
boot. I think you love it actually. It's going to be so fun. I'm doing a group coaching, so there's going to be a lot more space for like questions and transformation, and it's not just a course. And so I'm really, really excited about it. We have a really fun group.
It sounds like it's going to be amazing. One of the other things that I really wanted to hear more about from you was I saw a post specifically on your Instagram page. It was about Aries, the Aries Libra energy that's happening right now, and specifically towards healing the masculine. And I know I mentioned to you before that this whole trend that's happening right now on social media with girls kind of man hating in a way or bashing men, and it's like a very negative energy. I'm interpreting it that way as being put out, where I think yes, men should be called out on their bad behavior at not getting away with things or letting us turn a blind eye, but I just feel like this is going to create more division and confusion around what's, because it's not very healing to do that. What's right and what's the wrong thing to do. So maybe can you tell us more about that? Do you know what post I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure. So in the birth chart, or like even just in astrology, I work really heavily with something called the inner protector, which is Mars, Aries energy, and then the inner lover, which is Venus energy. And I think that both of these parts of us need to be really imbalanced in order for us to feel in control of our own lives. And what's happening is there are a lot of people who are over identified with the protector and in men and women, and they're coming online and they're saying men do this da 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 da, women do this da 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 da, and there's this huge blowout happening on social media and on TikTok and Instagram and whatever, where it's really like men versus women. It's like that gender war shit all over again. And the ironic thing about that is neither of those groups are ever going to be able to see each other or see eye to eye or have real true connection, because they have these misconceptions that are coming from this desire to be protected, right? This feeling of I have to protect myself because nobody else will. And so on both sides, it's the inner masculine that's really like putting up these really strong walls. And I do find that a lot of people, they go through these periods in life where they're really connected to the inner lover, to Venusian energy, which can be kind of passive and sensitive sometimes. And that can be the part of us that does look back and go, wow, I let people walk all over me and I didn't have any boundaries. And I really did not take responsibility for myself or my own happiness. And then instead of finding the middle ground between these two, they move all the way over into the inner protector, into this really heavy Mars energy, and they go to war, they go to battle. And I think a lot of what's happening right now is surrounding that, is surrounding people not knowing how to integrate these two parts of self, because when they're both integrated, like this is an inner union, you're able to say, I desire connection and closeness and intimacy, and I value that, and I have the skills for that, and I can collaborate, and I can be vulnerable. And also, if you treat me poorly, I'm not sticking around. Like, that's how you know that you're really integrated in the two, but very, very few people are, and very few people are doing the work to become integrated. A lot of people, especially when it comes to dating and dating the opposite sex, a lot of people have these certain games or rules that they play that kind of keep them safe, but keep them isolated and lonely as well. So I think like that's a lot of what's happening. And the current eclipse set, the Aries Libra eclipse set, is allowing us to work through this. So we're in this kind of cosmic in between where we're all collectively having to confront these parts of ourselves and figure out how to find balance between these two.
Yeah, I love that. And I know like one of your posts was saying right now you talked about how collectively healing like the father wound, which is linked to your to masculine energy, is kind of what's going on in the collective right now. So you talked about like why dating sucks or something like that. Like how women had I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but how women went through this healing phase and now men are just entering in it. So you mentioned like a lot of women who are healed might be having a hard time finding a partner because the men are just like starting to heal this. So can you
Yeah.
explain that? because I think that that's really helpful, like shifting your perspective around this energy too, to think about it more of a coming from it more of a compassionate way as women, too. I think softening a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so my perspective, and this is based on just, I do a lot of dating and relationship coaching within my business, even though that's not necessarily what I advertise. I think because my work before was very in the dating and relationship realm, the only thing that I know just as much about as I do astrology and human design is the psychology of relationship, because it's like another great love of mine. And so what I've noticed is that a lot of women started really healing and figuring out who they are and what they want, and the purpose of things and all of that. And usually 2017 seems to be the year for a lot of women, but it could have been 2020 or 2021 or whatever. And I find that men are just starting to do that now. So a lot of them, there are definitely a lot of men who have been doing that work for a while. But I would say as a collective, as a group, they're waking up and realizing like, whoa, I am not happy. I have been living my life for everybody else. I have been doing what is expected of me. I have been trying to be a good man, a good husband, and there's not a lot of space left for me to just be a human being. A lot of men are having to figure out where their worth is and their purpose is outside of providing. A lot of men are really having to figure out what their lives mean, and what they want and who they are. A lot of men are learning or being initiated into more of a divine masculine quality, right? And so I think there is this gap right now where a lot of men are in their healing, and a lot of women are like, okay, wait, but I'm ready. You need to be healed already. And they're not. They're doing their own work. And so I think it's really, really important in the dating phase for people to just understand that there's kind of like something bigger happening and something bigger at play.
I love that. And I think that really resonated with me just from my past dating experience. That's why I was like wanting to touch on that, because I know a lot of women are, and I go to, I'm in finishing up my master's right now in psychology. And even I have a lot of young girls in my class, and they're all always talking about dating and meeting these guys on dating apps and just the things that happen and the stories I hear. I think the more people can put information out there like you are and teach people how to heal this instead of continuing to perpetuate an unhealthy cycle is so helpful and so necessary and needed right now. So thank you,
Sure.
because like I said, you guys check out her content on Instagram, because it's been very enlightening and helpful. And so, Giselle, one thing I did also want to hear about is how to heal or get into a better, healthier place within yourself and your own feminine and masculine energy. If you can give us some insight into how you help people with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny that you're asking about this, because this is literally why Magical Hot Girl Bootcamp was created, because there's certain things that I've noticed that we have to connect to internally in order for us to feel really like self connected, in order for our self esteem to increase. And even like dating, a lot of times, I know that a lot of women come into this conversation of working with the feminine and the masculine because they want to have healthy, happy relationships, right? And so your self-esteem is so important. It's like the cornerstone of everything. And a lot of people are working on all these tips and tricks for how to get a man or get a woman or da 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 da, but none of that is working at the core, which is your self-esteem. And the 5 magical hot girl archetypes are 5 aspects or pillars of self-esteem in a lot of ways. So usually what I do with clients is I have to figure out where on the spectrum they are, like what muscles are being overworked, I guess, and then we work to develop some of the other ones. But the path for everybody is so different, and it's so unique because we all have our own kind of like childhood experiences and neuroses that stops us from being able to be our like most happy, free, radiant, vibrant selves, if that makes sense. So a lot of it is about taking responsibility for the patterns that you're playing out and then choosing to do something different.
I love this. And I'm such a proponent for taking responsibility of your own emotional world and your own self, the way that you show up in your own life. Because I think what has happened, and I don't know how long this goes back, but people tend to project whatever it is that they feel that they're lacking or their need for validation from the external world. They
Mhm.
project their wounds onto everyone else outside of them and expect other people to almost validate them and whatever it is they're feeling inside that they're lacking, where the wound, the core wound, whatever it's the behavior or emotion that they're feeling is coming from. And just again, I love that whatever work you're doing right now is to help people come out of that, because I think until people realize that, again, your relationship with yourself is the most important thing, and nobody else can do that healing work but you. And so the quicker you realize that you turn your attention to yourself and stop worrying about what's going on outside of you, the faster life is going to progress in a healthier way for you.
Yeah. Well, and too, like if that's if that's the mode that you're approaching dating from, like everyone wants to look at the standards of what they have for a partner, but very few people want to look at, am I meeting those own standards for myself and for my own life? Am I an attractive partner? Very few people ask them that, of like the type of person that I am attracted to, am I attractive to them? Right? Nobody's asking that question. And if you're coming into a relationship with all of these wounds and these insecurities that you're expecting this person to fill or fix for you, that's all you have to offer. All you have to offer is the parts of you that are inadequate. And that's not very attractive to most people. And it's definitely not attractive to people who have been doing their own healing work. And so you're going to miss out on a lot of the people that would actually be a good partner for you because you haven't turned and looked at these parts of yourself.
So true. And I know from my own personal therapy experience, one of my therapists in the past had told me, you can't take your wounded child and sit it and place it in the other person's lap and expect them to take care of it, because it's not their job, it's not their responsibility. And it's not, and I've always felt, again, projecting your emotional stuff, it's not someone else's responsibility to fix that for you, and it's asking a lot of somebody to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I think women are very bad for that. Women are very bad for saying, I am broken and I need you to fix me. And some men take that on. They do like it. They like the damsel in distress thing. But the thing is, even for men, if that's the beginning of your relationship of like, you need to be saved and I am always saving you, neither of you are ever going to be able to actually co-create with each other until you come to a place of being equals. So it's creating a lot of disruption, I think, in the dating game. And it'll be interesting to see how things shift as people start to heal.
I love that, and I know I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So I've realized that, in case for anyone who is listening that has never heard about human design yet or heard about astrology, maybe we can give them a little bit of insight into both modalities and just kind of, I know we went over into your specific type of work, but maybe just talking a little bit more about both things and kind of what they're used for. Because I know a lot, like, a girl that works for me told me one of her clients wouldn't hire her unless their human design and astrology matched, which, I mean, I don't know if that's the healthy way to look at it, but I know a lot of people are using it to make their businesses more efficient, basically, because each person's strength works in different ways. How can we touch on that a little bit?
So you can use your astrology and your human design to make any aspect of your life better. I do think there it has a place in business. I use it obviously in my business all the time. I do think that the universe also puts people in our path that we are meant to learn from and that are a good fit for us. And sometimes if you judge someone too quickly based on their astrology or human design of whether they're a good fit, you're actually missing out on something that might be good for you. So I don't personally do that. I do love to look at people's astrology and human design and see where we are similar and maybe where we're different. But even in dating, I don't really like to use it for compatibility in that way. I think it's much more important to go with your felt sense and how your body feels about a person than the astrology. I think that when we start using astrology and human design in really specific ways like that, it just becomes another wall or another way of keeping people out and another way of trying to protect ourselves or keeping ourselves safe. But you can hire someone who's perfectly compatible with you. You can date someone who's perfectly compatible with you, and they can still, fuck up your business and break your heart. Like, you can't protect yourself from those things. So I think it's more about trying to work with what you've got. But I really see astrology as the roadmap. It tells me kind of the path of your life. It tells me about certain experiences you might have or certain like strengths you have, weaknesses you have. Your siblings are in there, your partner's in there, all of those different things. Whereas human design is more practical. It's like your GPS. It's how we get from point A to point B. And it has more to do with who you are at your core and your most authentic, non conditioned self. Like, who would you be if the world didn't tell you who you needed to be?
I love that. And then there's 5 different types
Yeah.
for design in case you're really unfamiliar with it. And I had a reading from told me it's like your permission slip to be who you are without, yeah, the world telling you who you need to be. And it's really interesting because it really put things into perspective. And I'm also a manifesting generator, so when I learned about human design, it really gave me it's like everything I knew about myself that almost you're told is not right or not the way to fit into the box. It kind of gave me kind of put a weight off of my shoulders of, oh, okay, it's okay for me to be quote unquote flaky or be interested in a million different things or be very multi passionate. And it was just another tool that allowed me permission to express myself in a way, you know?
For sure. Yeah, it's like permission to be yourself is really what both of them do. It allows you to be like, okay, here is who I am and how do I live into the high road of this? So it's also like there's a whole spectrum of behavior available to you and you get to ask yourself, do I want to be on the low road of this or do I want to be on the high road of this? And here's how I can move into the high road of it. So it gives you permission to be yourself and then it also gives you a map to becoming your best version of self, which is really cool.
I love that so much. I know during my reading with you, you talked a lot about like the asteroids as well, which was really unique. I mean, people talk about asteroids, but I just like again, it was positive and I like how you told me about the different asteroids in my chart linked to different goddesses and just what energies are like around me or at my disposal that naturally I'm connected to in my chart, like Venus and I forgot what other
I
ones.
think you had Ceres and maybe Juno, but
Yeah,
I
Juno. And they all mean like they're all like different things. And when you explained them to me, it was really cool to hear because it made a lot of sense for even looking at patterns in my life and things that have happened and reoccurring themes where maybe I would be um maybe like a shadow side of myself that I want to
yeah.
push away, ignore, or I don't know how to say it, just disconnect from, and then versus other energies that I might have been intimidated by or just felt might be wrong to connect to. So I really love that part of your readings.
Yeah, I love the goddess asteroids. That is, if anyone's really curious about that, that is Demetra George is kind of like the queen of goddess asteroids. She has a book on it. She has lots of things on her website about how to learn how to, use them or work with them in your chart. Or obviously you can get a reading by someone like me that incorporates them. But I think this is where we balance out the wheel because so much of the planetary energies, like our 10 planets, are mostly masculine. The only ones that we have that are a feminine archetype are the moon and Venus. And so when we bring the goddess asteroids in, we can balance that wheel out. And so we can start to understand ourselves a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and I think most people don't understand that you're more than just I'm an Aries, I'm a Taurus. There's so much more to it
Yeah.
than that, and it's very limiting too. I think a lot of times people would think astrology is like, oh, it's just going to tell you who you are. And if I read my horoscope in the newspaper, that doesn't sound like me. Well, again, there's so much more to it, and it can be such a useful tool if you give it a chance and come to someone like you and get like a deeper understanding of exactly what it is. And again, take it or leave it. It's not like you have to live your life by everything that's in your chart. You have a choice. It's just really
Mhm.
interesting if you're looking for another way to utilize your strengths.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
I feel like we covered so many things today. So there's nothing that's really coming to mind. I feel like you did a good job. We covered all of the like primary big things.
Well, Giselle, I again am such a huge fan and advocate of your work, and I think what you do is really special. And I love that you're helping people heal. And where can people find you or find more about you online?
Yeah, so I'm at the Cosmic Laundry on everything, on Instagram, on TikTok. Those are our primaries. And then of course we have a website, we have a Substack, but mostly my like main hub, my main place that you could find my work is on Instagram.
Perfect. So thank you so much for your time today, Giselle. And I hope you guys check her out and you've learned a lot from her. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for having me.